treadmill, especially here in California. Like, I've done this workout once already in this training cycle. It'll be like kind of a good gauge of how much I've progressed since then, how this effort feels compared to how it felt, you know, just shy of 2 months ago. We're taking 2 minutes rest, so just shy of 1-to-1, which is exactly the rest.
That's like a nice, comfortable bathroom break on the race course if you can get that 2 minutes.
Hey, it might be a comfortable bathroom break this morning if you need it.
Right.
On that note, here we go. Mikey's done 800s. He's gonna bring me out the first lap. But he had a great workout. I mean, he just ran 6x800.
Shit, dude.
You know, 230 average.
3 miles.
Running really well. Thankful for his company.
I don't know if you're looking at me to say anything.
You don't need to say anything.
Rep number 8. It's been a good workout so far. Ended on a strong note now. You ready?
Yes, sir.
Let's go, baby.
Here we go.
Setting them up, knocking them down here. Send it.
Go, Mario, go. What were you saying about Mario before? You wouldn't want to race him?
Because I would never know if he's getting tired. So smooth and consistent. And I know he's working his best, but you can't freaking tell. You just can't tell. Send it, send it, send it. Here we go, all the way. All the way.
2:24.8.
Yeah, that was good. Last time I did this workout, started like 235, 236. Got into a good groove.
Yeah.
Of like 232, 33, and finished with 227. And this one we were 230, 231 from the start. Bunch of 229s and then 224. So I'm stoked. That's good progress.
That's
nice little confidence boost.
Good confidence booster for race day. Where does this count for you in the race? Hold on. Nate didn't turn on the sound. All right, guys.
That was a user error. He's
Okay,
only in
so we
charge
should-
of one thing
Oh,
for
God.
this live show.
So we should have sound now. Basically, what we were just saying was...
Let's start again. Welcome to the episode 46. Today we're going to be talking about the Boston Marathon. Nate froze his... I'm saying all the same stuff again.
I know.
Nate froze his butt off last week. I was on a silent meditation retreat and meditated for 15 hours a day. It was very peaceful. I feel calm. Nate does not.
I do not feel
That's
calm.
pretty much all what we said.
Yeah.
So
We're at our yin and yang levels, right? He's at his max yin and I'm at my max yang.
we just got started and Nate went to get coffee and he's like, I need some coffee before we do the show. And then I realized all the things that he set up for the live show have kind of gone awry. So
Yeah, that's true.
Nate has been working his butt off and really needs a break for this weekend. So
I know. I need a little recharge. But speaking of recharge, I get a little recharge in the show. I always like hanging out with you guys.
Yeah, this
super
is
fun. We have some real great guests today who's got an insider access to the Boston Marathon, both having run it himself and really knowing the elite world well. Mario Fraioli of the Morning Shakeout, he is going to be calling in about 7 or 8 minutes. We have him on. We're going to do a little Skype call, so we should see Mario kind of show up in one little part of the screen. We're super stoked to have him in there. So, as we get going here, guys.
First of all, just shout out to people who are in here. Running Geek Girl, always good to see you. David Friswell, good to see you too.
Tone's
Eric,
in there.
Tone, Fenna, that's a new name.
Yeah. Heather,
our friends are
Claudia,
back.
what's
This is
going
great.
on? Everyone's in the mix. Always, we love to know where you're coming in from. And if you guys are racing, I know that Boston was on everyone's brain. If you were in Boston, let us know. But of course, if you were racing somewhere else, we would love to hear about that too. You had one job, Nate. I know, Eric, exactly. Edward coming in from Alaska. Carrie says, what's up?
Did you have Mario get me on Skype?
I think he got you on Skype. I'll double check to make sure that he's all added in there. So a few more updates as we go. We went and had, let me start over.
I can
It's
see what
rough,
kind of
guys.
show this is.
It's gonna be rough. Holly and I went to the Boston Marathon, and our goal was to connect with you guys, meet runners, and talk to different brands.
Right.
And super, super fun. We got to meet a bunch of you guys on Boston Common on Saturday morning. We got to do a little workout together. And just to kind of connect and hang, because we do all this stuff online, but it's really fun and powerful to meet in person. We walked around the expo a ton, got to meet just a bunch of you guys. Some of you guys who've been watching the channel, have been up being at the race. We got to run into each other.
I really missed out. I really felt that I had to miss Boston's here, but
I know.
Really I'm glad Holly got to go.
It was so fun for Holly to go because she hasn't experienced that yet, and people coming up to her like, "Oh, I've done your follow-along workouts and other things." So that was super, super cool. And we've got some really fun videos dropping. And this video we're dropping out next week is going to be this open letter video from Boston Marathons to future would-be ones.
Would this be Mario here, the San Diego?
Yeah, that's going to be Mr. Yeah, I would assume that's Mario. We're doing this open letter style video. I captured probably 30 interviews. And it's little tidbits from first-time Boston Marathoners who are racing, from the start to the finish.
Sorry, I was talking to Mario.
I was thinking of the town. And then everything from just what the qualifying experience has been like, what the training has been like, and what they were really thinking about race day. And I got first-timers, I got the vets who've done it 5 to 10 times, as well as some elites in there. So this video is being put together as we speak.
Yeah, hopefully be out maybe early next week.
Yeah, it's going to come out on Friday next week when we have it scheduled. So stay tuned for that. That'll be super
awesome.
fun.
Very cool. And actually, if any of you guys happen to be in the area, in the Bay Area, we are actually doing an event.
We are.
Coming up next weekend with Dathan Ritzenhein. I always say it's wrong. Ritzenhein. Dathan is actually a little bit of a personal hero for me because we kind of grew up at the same time running high school track. Now, not anywhere close to the same level, but I always followed his workouts through high school and through college, and he's just done an amazing job. So it's really cool that we're gonna get to do an event with him here in town. And if you are here or you're gonna be here next weekend, you can join. It is on. Is it Saturday? Sunday.
It's gonna be Saturday.
Saturday.
Yep.
Saturday at Sports Basement. We're gonna have a link that you're gonna put in there.
I just dropped it in there. As I said, obviously. For our crew that is all over, this is maybe not going to be the thing. But for anyone who's in the Bay Area, and we know you are there and around and listening in, this would be a super fun way to connect with Dathan. I'm going to be on the panel as well, so that's going to be super fun. And then we are going to do a bunch of filming with Dathan before and after, so we're going to get some great videos with him, which will be really cool. Yeah. I'm looking forward to that.
Awesome. So in terms of our guest, Mario's been on here before. Some of you guys know him already. He won't let me say he's an elite runner, but he's an amazing runner.
He's not, so like these guys at this level, they're not technically elite because they're not starting in the elite professional wave, so they call themselves age group, but anyone who runs a 2:30 marathon or faster is in like the 1% of the 1% of the running population, so it's like you're pretty damn good.
He's elite when compared to us, that's for sure.
That's for sure.
So anyhow, he's an amazing runner. He's a long-time journalist in the running world and basically knows everybody. He has a really cool newsletter called the Morning Shakeout. Speaking of which, the link below this video, if you check it out, there's a Gleam link. It's a link to his newsletter, and you can enter for our sponsor today is Gore-Tex. They sent us a bunch of cool gear.
Yeah,
where is the gear?
It's right back here, and this is this is like the typical like. Better, you know, like totally we're pulling this in. I can't talk today. I cannot use my words.
I'm
gonna need to lean on you, and I'm gonna have to lean on you guys.
It's weird that we're talking about Boston, not firing. So we have a pretty cool weatherproof cap from Gore-Tex. We have some performance socks.
Yeah, all the things that would have been useful, you know, prior to the race.
Yeah.
Last week.
That's what he's trying to say.
For those guys,
I actually used my new jacket from them when it was pouring down earlier this week. It's great. So we like Gore-Tex, and we're going to actually be talking a little bit more about trying out a little bit more of their gear.
Yeah. So you're able to...
I love that they're addressing the running market.
Yeah, this is like waterproof and breathable. That's the beautiful thing with a lot of Gore-Tex stuff coming from New England. That combination of things is so great. And winter clearly is not ending in large parts of the country as snow and cold weather and rain is still happening. Yeah. So definitely still worthwhile to check these guys out. And we're doing a giveaway. As Craig said, we're gonna do the drawing at the end of the next week.
Yep. So just hit the link below. Even if it's not live, that link will still work for you, and you can sign up. And that's how you can also check out Mario's newsletter. All right. What else is up? What is on the ticket?
What is else on the ticket?
What are people talking about? Let's see what some people are saying.
They're talking about all types of things. I think Edward says, sounds like Nate needs a week-long meditation retreat.
Yeah.
I do. You know, I need a little recharge, guys, and then I'm going to be going strong the next few weeks, and then my wife and I are going to be doing a cycling trip in Italy for 10 days. So don't play the violin too strong for me. I'm doing just great. It'll be nice to be home this weekend and to kind of decompress and relax.
Yeah.
So it's staying strong for the next few weeks.
Troy from Tampa
calling in here. So other little quick things before we get Mario on. Our weekly challenge every Tuesday in our weekly running tune-up Facebook group. You guys are all personally invited. It's in an invite-only group, but because you guys watch the show, you of course are invited. Every Tuesday I post a 2-minute video that is some sort of strength, mobility, coordination challenge. Yep. It is something that takes 2 to 5 minutes, usually no more than 10. Easy to add in before, after your runs, and the whole point of the Run Experience in this weekly running tune-up group is to make you a better runner in some way.
Caller. Sure, let's take it. Why not?
We got a caller coming in. Let's take it. Here we go. I feel like...
Hello? Oh no, we missed some.
We missed something.
Oh.
Anyway.
Anyhow, we're going to talk to Mario in just a second so you can keep that in your ear.
Let's leave this here. And let's go ahead and get Mario in. I'll tag him. Sweet.
I can just call him right here.
Ready when you are.
I got it right
So
here.
we might call him and get him going. And as I said, Mario's Morning Shakeout podcast is really great. He has interviewed Shalane and Desi, and had just a great interview with Desi, you know, a month ago, 5 weeks ago, something like that.
Hey, there he is.
Hey,
All right,
Mr.
hang
Mario.
on. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna get you into our chat.
Yeah, let's make sure that his sound and audio is on
All right.
so we can hear.
Are you saying that I don't have the audio correctly? I set this up just perfectly. So, all right.
I'm overcompensating from my previous.
We can see you and hear you clearly. Sorry that you're gonna just get to see us like this, but the audience can see you and see us.
I'm right.
We're looking up here and he's
Exactly.
looking at us. So it's
I was
the way
enjoying
this
the view
works.
of your T-shirt there for a second, but
you know what? It's branded gear. You know.
looks good.
He wore my T-shirt today. So.
All right. Well, let's just make sure if you guys can hear Mario okay. I think you guys should. Mario, how are you feeling, recovering? How are the legs?
Much better today than yesterday and Tuesday. I'm finally walking around normally again with near minimal soreness, but the last couple of days were pretty rough.
Yeah, for sure.
You know maybe you need a Theragun.
I know, right? Exactly.
Bring that later.
Mario, that's always a good sign. I always felt like as an athlete or as a coach that if I had that level of soreness afterwards, I had a good race. I was able to go to that place and really push myself. A lot of athletes, when they get like they're cold, they're shut down, they were just running at such a suboptimal pace that they might not have been that sore afterwards, and it means that they weren't able to really tap into what they could have done on that day.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's welcome soreness for sure, especially after Boston, which is a course that will definitely beat you up because of all the downhill running, and I think that's exacerbated on a day when it's really just kind of really cold. And I know for me, even after I finished, it was a while before I was able to get inside where it was dry and warm, and I was shivering a lot on my way inside. And I'm actually sore, like in my, kind of in my traps, just from being like this for, minutes after the race. It was one of those days. But yeah, sore in all the usual places, or the expected places, I should say, quads and calves and whatnot.
What is your general, your recuperation kind of protocol coming off of a race that was like an A race for you like this, where you're that sore?
This one's unique because I flew to it and I had to get on a plane again the next day, which wasn't ideal. I was definitely wearing compression socks on the plane, but just tried to, the night, Monday night, it was hard to sleep. I was so sore. Just every time I turned over in bed, I could just feel that soreness, and it would keep me awake. And even the tips of my toes from all the downhill running were just very tender because they were hitting the front of my shoe a little bit, that if my toes touched the blanket, it was just sort of like this sharp little thing that woke me up. So Monday night was pretty miserable, but I mean, I tried to get some dry clothes on as quickly as possible. I got some food in my stomach as soon as I could afterward. Within that first hour, I think I had some baked goods and a hot chocolate, which was very welcome given how cold it was that day. And totally. When I got home to my dad's house a few hours later, I grew up in Massachusetts, so I was able to stay at my dad's house for the weekend. We went out for a nice meal and had a big burger and some fries and a couple beers to celebrate, but also just to start replenishing some of the calories that I had lost. So I think it started there. In an ideal world, I would have gotten a great night of sleep, but I was a little too sore for that to happen. But thankfully, the last 2 nights have been better, and just try to put my legs up. And I try to move the next day. I haven't run yet, but I got out and just moved my body, walked around a bit, did some of the mobility exercises that Nate's introduced to me through his strength training class that I go to every week. I was not there this morning, but I did do my mobility exercises just to loosen my hips and my hammies up a little bit. But
it was good
course.
you weren't there this morning. I messed those guys up this morning. I messed them up pretty good, so it was good you weren't there. So Mario, I wanted to ask about how you managed your expectations and your mental game going into this big race, because this was I think your fourth Boston.
Correct.
And you've done previous ones. I know you worked really hard. Last year, was I know a little dissatisfying to you.
Mm-hmm.
And you really are working really hard for this. And then all of a sudden you have the introduction of this weather And everyone has that, right? They have a certain time goal in mind when they go into a race. They might have certain paces laid out, and it very quickly becomes a situation where, you know, the plan might need to be re-examined or thrown out the window. So how did you deal with that on Monday and going into Monday?
Yeah, so as a little recap of last year's Boston Marathon, the conditions were quite the opposite. It was warm, right? Sunny, and dry. And I don't fare very well in those conditions for whatever reason. I never have. And I wilted, for lack of a better term, and walked the last 5 aid stations and had my slowest Boston ever last year. And I think I was a little too stubborn last year. I was set on trying to run a certain time, and it was probably a little too aggressive for the day and the conditions. And I paid for it. And I had a rough second half. So this year, even before we knew how bad the weather was going to be, my main goal was to just execute a better race than I had the year prior, last year. So that was at front of mind. I mean, since I committed to Boston last September when I signed up. And once we got into race week and we saw that the conditions weren't going to be ideal in terms of the rain and the wind and the cold, I knew that time was out the window. I mean, my workouts and my training has shown that, I was in 2:30 marathon shape plus or minus a couple minutes, but it wasn't a 2:30 type of day, so I didn't really think too much about those times. And I knew that the wind was going to be worse the second half of the course. I didn't expect it to be as strong or as wet as it was. So just coming off the line, I just tried to focus on my effort over anything else and making sure that I was just comfortable. Comfortable is a relative term, I think, in those conditions, but that I was going out at an effort that was sustainable for the day. And I focused on that. I don't think I looked at my watch more than 5 times the entire race. And
wow.
A couple key checkpoints like 10K, I think I looked at it, and halfway, and I think again at 20 miles, but that was it.
Yeah. Is that normal for you, Mario? Sorry to interject. Like, do you normally find yourself looking at your watch more? Was there like a decision you made, like not to look at your watch as much on the day?
Yeah, that was a decision that I made. I think if it were a better day, and I was trying to run, say, that 2:30 that I had mentioned earlier, I would be looking at it a little more closely just to make sure that I wasn't going out too fast. But I knew I wasn't going out too fast just based on how I felt and what was going on around me. But what was really interesting is I was able to kind of maintain that effort, even though my pace slowed down a bit the second half. I think everyone's did. I was still passing a lot of people, and that just told me that I went out at an appropriate effort compared to those around me, and that I was gaining momentum as others were losing it, or maintaining as others were losing it.
Now, I know that for everyone, everything was a battle, but nutrition particularly was a battle. And I was talking to your wife this morning, and she mentioned that pretty much the last time you were able to really get any calories in was, around that 10 to 15K mark. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. My wife met me at 10K, or she was at the 10K mark, and she had a bottle of nutrition for me that I was able to grab from her. And if I didn't grab that, I wouldn't have gotten any calories in the entire race, because my hands were just so frozen and useless that I couldn't get my gels out of my back pocket, much less open them to take them down. So I ran with that bottle for 4.5 miles. It had 320 calories in it. Okay. High carbohydrate drink. And if I hadn't got that in, I wouldn't have gotten any calories in the entire day, and I think the end result would have been a lot different than it was. Yeah. And even, I can say, like, after that, I mean, I could have used a few more calories, especially the second half. My tank was definitely low the last few miles based on how I was feeling, but there's nothing I could do about it given the conditions. I tried even just trying to take water at some of the aid stations after that. I would approach it with like 2 hands like this, and I'd grab the cup and I'd get maybe a sip or 2 out, and I'd spill the rest on me because I just had no loss of motor function or whatever it may have been.
Yeah.
So that was a savior. That was a savior for me, and I think that was a problem for a lot of people, is just this inability to get calories in, because you know, in those conditions it's cold and you don't think, like, you know, from a hydration standpoint, you don't think you need as much. I mean, you certainly you need as much as you do in any other on any other day. But at the same time, if you're shivering, you're burning a lot more calories as well, in addition to addition to running.
You're just your body's working harder just to maintain some level of body heat in addition to the task at hand.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that got a lot of people who dropped out. I mean, a lot of people dropped out between 12 and 18 miles, kind of at that critical point.
That's actually the question that we got.
So we have a question from Zakia, and guys, if you have questions for Mario, our whole point of bringing, you know, people on, like, such as him onto our live show, is to connect him with you. So if you guys have questions for Mario, like, drop them into the comments feed. Of course, if you like what we're doing on these things, guys, you know, make sure you like this video. That really helps us a lot on these live streams too. So we have a question from Zakia. Did you consider giving up at any point, like Desi says, when she was considering it mile 4 or 5?
I personally did not, and there were a couple of reasons for that. One, I was never in such distress that I felt like I needed to. My hands were frozen, my feet were frozen, my face was frozen, but my core was actually pretty warm. For whatever reason, I heat up well. I don't know. I'm fairly muscular. Maybe that has something to do with it, or I'm just more tolerant of the cold. But my core never really got all that cold, so I was never in any real distress where I felt like, okay, I should stop because I'm in a dangerous spot. And then the other, I did have the thought that if I stopped at any point of the race, I would go into a med tent. Sure, they'd give me some blankets, and I would stay warm, but it would be another 2 or 3 hours before I actually made it to the finish line. So the fastest way to Boston was actually to run there, even if I'd slowed down. And thankfully, I didn't slow down. Thankfully, I didn't slow down all that much. But I did have that thought, and talking to some of my friends afterward who did stop, it took them a while to kind of get back to Boston. I had one moment after halfway where I any other day I would have stopped to take 30 seconds and use the bathroom, and I didn't even want to stop to do that because I knew it would have been hard to get going again.
Getting started again would be real rough.
So I just tried to stay on it and keep going as consistently as I could to the finish line.
Now that's awesome.
Let's do a rapid fire round since we have so many questions.
We have a few. I want to go one more one. This is from Edward on gear.
Okay.
And Edward basically asks what type of gear you were wearing going in, and my follow up would be, if you were in those conditions again, what would you change differently with your gear? Because you just ran the New York City half marathon, in March, and that was pretty cold conditions, right? So you were kind of like, okay, I've got something sort of dialed in for these cold conditions, but the layer on of the cold and the wind kind of changed things. Yeah,
so New York City half about a month ago was freezing cold. I mean, I don't think it broke 28 degrees during the race, but it was dry. It was dry. So we weren't contending with the rain, which adds a whole nother element, and it was windy in New York. And for that race, I had I had gloves on, and I had arm warmers that in retrospect, I probably would have kept on the entire race. But one of my athletes who I coach had left hers back at her apartment. She didn't have any, so I gave her my arm warmers before the race, and she wore them. So, on that day my arms did get cold, and I knew that next time I raced in cold weather, I needed to make sure that I had arm warmers. So fast forward to Boston, knowing that it was going to be cold, but not as cold as New York, cold and wet. I was like, all right, well, I heat up very well. I tend to get hot. I knew I didn't want to wear a jacket. I've never raced in a jacket, and I know that if I did, I probably would have generated almost like so much body heat that my core would have been uncomfortable. So I knew I didn't want a jacket to race in. I also didn't want to buy like a $30 to $50 pair of arm sleeves that I would potentially throw off during the race. So I actually, staying at my dad's house, I grabbed a pair of his old tube socks, cotton tube socks.
Oh, wow.
And I cut the bottoms off, and I put those up on my arms thinking that, all right, well, I don't know how wet it's going to be, but if I have to throw these things off, they're an old pair of tube socks. No one's gonna care. Trying trying to play that game of, all right, well, if it rains really hard, they're going to get wet and it's cold, and that may backfire on me. But it was never really a problem. I was actually glad that I had them, and I never took them off the entire race. So I wore these old cotton tube socks on my arms. I had, let's see, I had 2 pairs of gloves. I had a kind of like a tech pair underneath that actually had these little mittens that would go over the fingers. And I should say I have Raynaud's, so like my hands and my feet, they get really cold and they go numb, so kind of like lose blood flow to them. And so I had a pair of like kind of tech gloves, I guess, closest to my hand, and they had a little flap that went over the fingers if I needed them. But then I put a pair of like kind of thicker cotton gloves over them, and I had like hand warmers in my hands, like those little.
Oh, smart, yeah.
That you put in. Well,
actually.
They worked for a while. They worked till about 6 or 7 miles, and then they stopped because I had them in before the race, and I threw them out at some point. So I had those on. I had like a ball cap on my head, headband to cover my ears, which I kept on the entire way. And then I wore shorts and a singlet, which for me, my legs were fine, my core and my arms were fine. It was really my hands, my feet, and my face.
Wow,
that were freezing.
Singlet on, huh?
But I walked. You have to be out in the start corral about a half hour before the race. So I walked to the start line with I didn't have any pants on at that time, just my shorts. But I had on this old jacket that I found in my dad's closet. It was kind of like a thicker jacket. It wasn't waterproof or anything, but it was warm. And I had a trash bag over that to kind of keep the rain off
trash
me.
Bag's what I always do. Yeah.
While I was warming up, and I threw the trash bag off probably about 10 minutes before the race, and I kept that jacket on all the way until the 1 minute countdown. And then at the 1 minute countdown, I took the jacket off in the corral and threw it to the side, which a lot of other people did. And I just ran with my hat, headband, gloves, singlet, and cotton tube sock arm sleeves. The rest of the way.
Would you have, like, doing that again? Would you have done the same thing that you did, or would you have added any additional layers or any other clothing to the mix?
Me personally, I don't know that I would have added any additional layers. Maybe knowing that I kept the arm sleeves on the entire time, I might have gone with something that was fleece lined or tacky. I don't even know if that would have helped because they would have been soaked anyway. The only change I would make is I would have try to find like a pair of kind of thicker mittens, because my hands probably would have stayed warmer in some mittens, even though they would have gotten soaked as well. But I didn't have those available to me.
For my money in the cold, like cold rain, wool all the way.
Yeah, for sure.
I usually have some Patagonia stuff, and I think I have some. What's that company called in the down to North Beach? There are a bunch of companies that put wool gear together. I was such a skeptic of it, but it actually it makes a big difference. Really
so I grew up sailing, and your memories of like not being able to use your fingers for anything. Like I would sail on Boston Harbor in March with like 37-degree ocean water and 20-degree winds, and we're just sitting there. And afterwards, I just like fell. But the gear was just like I just couldn't do anything for so long. So I know how painful that is, and it's not fun.
Yeah.
You don't do all those layers. GK Mouse.
Yeah, it's not fun.
Not fun, right? He says, I never seem to warm up before run. Did you warm up before the race? And we're kind of getting questions around that. Carrie was asking similar things. How did you keep your muscles warm before the race? How do you stay loose?
Mm-hmm.
Those are kind of two questions I feel like they kind of go together a little bit.
So before the race, I don't know how many of you are familiar with Boston, but when you walk up to the corrals, there is an area kind of to the right of the start line corrals. It's a street. It's like a side street, and they open that up for runners to use as kind of a warm-up spot. And they actually had a tent there that ran the length of it. And I mean, this is only like a 100-meter stretch.
Yeah.
But I went into that area, and with my thick jacket and my trash bag, I was just kind of running some laps back and forth, just sort of jogging. I did a couple quicker strides to loosen my legs up, and then it really started downpouring again. So I went under the big tent because I didn't need to be in the corral yet. So I went under the big tent, and I just started doing some drills in there. I did some high knees, some butt kicks, just kind of some openers, some quick feet, just to keep moving, just so that when I got into the corral, I had idle for too long. So that I was starting the race like starting the race was somewhat warm.
What was the effect?
So that's what I did for the race.
Yeah.
I was just thinking, like, you did the North Face 50 miler in the fall, and you were training, same as we were. What was the effect of that training period on your Boston prep, if any?
It's a good question. I'd never trained for a 50 mile before, so I was doing a lot of runs last fall that were longer than I would typically do, and slower in some way, some ways, because I was on the trails and gaining like a lot of elevation with many of my runs. So it's very different than marathon training, which is much more pace centric. Not as long, I guess, on some of the long runs as a 50 miler, but I think just kind of getting on the trails made me a better athlete overall, because you use more of your body. It requires some different skills, requires more strength. Where we live here in the Bay Area and running in the Marin Headlands, you have a lot of long climbs, and by long I mean 5 to 20 minutes in duration, and equally long descents where you're running downhill at a pretty good speed for a long time and really just kind of hammering your legs. And I think from a conditioning standpoint, being able to do that and running on that type of terrain hardened my legs a bit and made them a little more resilient for Boston, for the downhills.
Gotcha.
But one of the biggest things for me is, I wasn't running anywhere near the speeds that I'm running during marathon training, at least for a lot of my runs, because I'm on trails and there's more variety to it. It's just generally slower terrain. So getting my marathon legs back the first part of this year took a couple of months just to regain that rhythm. My body changed a little bit. I mean, my legs actually got bigger, like running trails and doing more
from all the trail stuff.
Just from doing more climbing, like you just develop different muscles. And so, my body had to change again when I got back into more marathon stuff, where I was running flatter, on flatter terrain, wasn't climbing quite as much, trying to get my legs back. But I think it just laid a really solid foundation of strength for marathon training. Like aerobically, I was in good shape. The distance wasn't intimidating to me anymore. But it did take a while to get the rhythm back and to get back into speed work and track workouts and all those sorts of things that are important for running a good marathon.
Yeah, that's cool.
Awesome.
Well, guys, if you guys are just tuning in right now, we're talking to Mario Fraioli of the Morning Shakeout, fantastic newsletter and
sign up
podcast.
If you haven't already.
Sign up, get on it, as Mario likes to say.
There's a link right below this video for both Mario's newsletter and also for our Gleam link for our giveaway for the Gore-Tex gear. In honor of a rainy Boston.
Yeah, Mario, we thought it'd be appropriate to give away some wind, waterproof, breathable, rainproof rain gear for runners.
I wish you would have offered that to me about a week ago. I probably would have taken you up on it.
Yeah, I know, right? But speaking of the Morning Shakeout and the podcast, you have done some really fantastic interviews with runners of different levels, including this year's Boston Marathon winner, like Des Linden. Why don't you tell us a little bit about, that interview, some things you learned talking to her more, and, just a little bit about the race, just some of your kind of comments, reactions on how the women's race shook out.
Yeah, so Des specifically, I've had the pleasure of knowing her for a few years now through my previous work at Competitor Magazine and Competitor.com. I've covered a lot of events that she's run. We did a project with her, I think it was 2014, maybe, called the Kenya Project. She had spent, the spring basically before Boston that year. I believe it was 2014, maybe it was 2015. She did it 2 years in a row, but training in Kenya with some of the best runners in the world. And she went there for her Boston prep, and we did a project around it and released some videos, which you can still find online, which is pretty cool. And I've just gotten to, because I'm in this world and I'm still at a lot of events, we overlap quite a bit. So when I had started the Morning Shakeout podcast a few months back, I knew, I'd kind of made my dream list of guests that I would like to have, and Des was near the top of it. So I reached out to her pretty early on, and she was episode 3, I believe, and we spoke in we spoke in late January as she was really just starting to ramp up her Boston Marathon training. I think she was probably 12 weeks out at that point, and we definitely talked about her Boston prep and sort of what she wanted to accomplish at this year's race. And I mean, she finished second there in 2011 in a really close finish. She was leading on Boylston Street, and I think it was Caroline Kalel from Kenya who outran her on Boylston Street, and she was a very close second. So for the last 7 years, she's been trying to win the big one. In fact, it was in her Twitter and Instagram profile up until Monday afternoon. It was, I think it said in her profile, still trying to win the big one, because she's been runner-up at Boston. She'd been runner-up at the Olympic trials. I think runner-up or third at the Olympic trials. Like she's been in the mix a lot of times at some of these big races.
That's awesome.
And this was her sixth Boston, and
incredible.
On the sixth time she's had solid races at Boston. She was runner up. I think she was fourth and sixth, and top 10 a bunch of times, and she finally won the big one. So it was kind of fun this week, last couple days, to go back and re-listen to that interview myself and hear her talk about how important Boston was to her, how competitive the women's field was, how strong the American contingent was. She knew she would have her work cut out for her.
Yeah.
And I'm a big fan of Des. I mean, she's a very hard worker. She's a very humble personality. And she is just a gritty racer. And to see it finally pan out for her on Monday. I didn't see it pan out because I was running the race myself, but when I caught up with my wife afterwards, I was like, "Who won the women's race?" She's like, "Des won." I was like, "No way!"
Yeah,
it was crazy. And I actually spent, I got into Boston on Wednesday, and I was at an event, Thursday night, just a small little gathering, and ran into Des and her husband Ryan there, and we were having a beer on Thursday night. She was relaxed before the race.
Awesome.
Boston Marathon champion. She said she felt good. Awesome. Her training had gone well. She seemed excited about the adverse conditions that they were forecasting at that point. And I mean, look, and I don't think she would tell you any differently. If it were an ideal day in terms of weather and faster in terms of time, and there was less carnage in the elite race, I don't think she would have won. It would have been a lot harder for her to run away from some of those women. But because the conditions were so adverse, and because she was the grittiest of them all and had the confidence to take the lead when she did and just keep the pedal down all the way to the finish line, I mean, that was the race she's going to win. Like, no one's going to beat her in that situation, or very few people are going to beat her in that situation.
Yeah. Well, so speaking of that, I think what most people might find surprising are some of the real low points she hit earlier in the race. A lot of times when you hear someone who wins, it's like, hey, I had a good day, it felt good, yeah, I suffered a little bit, but it was sort of like, usually the people who win, they don't consider dropping out or stopping and helping other runners, or thinking about, hey, my race is over, I need to go help other runners in the race, helping Molly Huddle and Shalane Flanagan specifically. And a lot of people are thinking about how maybe that shift in mindset, in a way, kind of strangely helped her get through those really gritty, tough parts, so that she really was the last man standing, or last woman standing. Last woman standing. Yeah. What did you, when you heard, Desi went through those things, what were your thoughts on that?
Well, I went through some of those same things too, just dealing with the miserable conditions. Yeah. I think anyone who raced on Monday, whether you won or whether you finished in 5 hours, you were dealing with a lot of the same conditions and probably a lot of the same thoughts throughout the race. And I think, in regard to the women's race, the women's elite race specifically, and Desi and what was happening with Shalane and Molly Huddle, and her waiting up for Shalane to come out of the bathroom and kind of bring her back toward the front of the race, I think it just, a couple things. I mean, I think it goes to show the solidarity amongst the American women. It was the deepest American women's field that Boston's ever had, and an American woman hadn't won in 35 years. So I think for all of them there, Shalane, Molly Huddle, Kellen Taylor, Des, I mean, they wanted an American woman to win, and all of them, obviously would like it to be themselves. And I think Des was just, early on was like, all right, I'm not feeling great. I don't know that this is my day. No one had any idea how the rest of the race was going to shape up. Yeah. she's like, well, if I can help Shalane, get there because, she won New York, she knows how to do this, then I can feel like I've had a part in it. And, then things just changed. Shalane wasn't feeling great. Desi, I think she said, she's like, I realized I was in third place and that why would I drop out if I was still in contention, still in third place? And I think it just like the lesson there is sometimes you just got to hang in and kind of let those moments of difficulty pass and see how things play out. And I think Desi, by just hanging in there for as long as she did, other people started to fall off. I think she realized she was probably no worse off than anyone else, and that she still had a chance. But I think too, maybe the universe just rewarded her for being very selfless and for whatever reason, Shalane wasn't feeling great either, and Desi took advantage of the opportunity. So
awesome.
Yeah,
really cool to hear that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was fun to be out there, and guys, I was out there. Holly and I went out to mile 2021 right as heart rate bill went up, and we did some live streaming. If you guys want to catch that, it's a video we put up on Monday.
It was great seeing you guys there. I needed that at that point. I was I was in a pretty rough spot with 5 miles to go, but seeing you guys on the side cheering for me was great. So thank you for that personally.
Of course, it was really fun to be out there and to see you guys come through, and you in particular, because we were looking for you.
Yeah.
But like, just to give you guys a reference, like I could only have one hand on my phone for maybe like 1 or 2 minutes, and I would have to switch. Like, it was just so cold miserable and raw.
Yeah.
And I was just trying to film, the women and the men go through and a bunch of the elites. And I was like, look, and people in the comments were like, hey, like Desi's in front. I'm like, okay, when she crosses the line, I will like turn the filming off because I need to get the hell out of here. Totally. And she's like, she's on Boylston. And then I'm like, when is she finishing this damn thing? I'm freezing my ass off. I need to get out of here. But it was so nasty. So, hats off to you guys racing and to just all the volunteers and everyone was out there.
Yeah.
It was
amazing.
I mean, it was amazing. Event. I mean, I've run 4 Bostons now. I've run it on some really nice weather days, which typically aren't nice weather days for the runners, when fans have been lining the entire course and they're 4 or 5 deep the entire way. The energy is just crazy. And I've run it on, some rough weather years. 2015 was cold and windy and not as wet as this one, but certainly not a great day for fans. And this past Monday was the worst conditions I've ever raced in 21 years of doing this crazy sport. And the fans along the course were just unreal. I mean, it wasn't as crazy as it typically is. It definitely kept some people inside, but I mean, just running through all the different towns, like seeing people out there cheering for the runners and supporting in the rain, and Heartbreak Hill was just crazy, and Wellesley was loud as it's ever been, and Boylston Street was still deafening. I mean, Boston fans are the best in the world. They appreciate marathoning. I think they respect the history of that race in particular, and it was really cool to sort of run through that. I was really appreciative, and the volunteers too were just amazing, and I can't say enough good things about who are out there on Monday. It made for those of us, it was miserable for you guys out there watching. It was miserable for us running, but I think there was this, back to the whole solidarity thing. I think there was this feeling of solidarity. It's like, hey, we're all out here together. We might as well encourage one another and help each other out.
Totally.
And, I think a lot of the runners, I know myself, like I was thanking volunteers whenever I could. I was thanking people who were yelling, yelling for me. And I for one was really appreciative of it all.
Such an awesome event.
Yeah, so maybe a good final question to ask.
Sure.
Maybe it's too early. Are you going to be out for Boston again next year?
So here's my plan. I love the Boston Marathon. I grew up around it. I've been watching it since before I even had an interest in running, and I've been working in running media since 2004. So I have covered the Boston Marathon every year, or have been to it every year, with the exception of my wedding in 2013, which was a few days before the bombing year. Interestingly enough. So I love the race. Anytime I can get out there for it, is really special. And I had a great time out there again this year, and I requalified, so I could certainly do it again next year. What I am going to do because I've missed covering the race the last couple of years. Is next year I'm going to go out and I'm going to cover the race and just kind of enjoy the weekend as a spectator, as a fan, as a member of the media, and I can go to the events and kind of like, tweet up a storm as I typically do, and like have fun without the burden of, hey, I got a race on Monday on my back. So I'm not going to run next year. I'm going to go out and enjoy myself, and I'm going to run Cal International Marathon, CIM, in December. Yeah. I'm already registered for it, signed up the day after last year's race. My wife is also running CIM. We're both going to try and qualify for Boston 2020, which we can do at CIM this year, and go back and race it in 2020. So I'm going to be back next year, but I'm not going to race on Marathon Monday. I'll try to enjoy the rest of the weekend, then I'll go back and race it 2020. There's nothing like
plan. Totally.
Yeah. I love it. That's awesome. A great plan. Yeah, it's fun being on the other side of things a little bit, not racing. You get to enjoy different aspects of the race and the event and expo. Well, Mario, thank you so much for
appreciate all your time today. Guys, again, if you want to hear more from Mario and his whole, he has a newsletter that comes out every single week
on Tuesdays.
And it's awesome. It is really, really a great kind of treatise on what's happening in the running world and his take on it. So sign up below, and of course, we'll probably see you on here again.
Yeah, definitely. And
thank you guys for having me. It's always fun.
For sure.
Always fun. Well, right on, man. We'll catch up and get a beer soon.
Yeah.
And
yeah. Cheers. Thanks very much. And guys, we have another 8 minutes before the drawing, so we will
catch you guys later.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. Thanks, Mario. Guys, as I said, if you're just jumping in here, we're doing our drawing of some great in honor of this super rainy, cold Boston weather.
Thankfully, it's not raining cold here.
No, it is not.
It's beautiful.
Some great Gore-Tex gear, like this really awesome, one-size-fits-all hat. This thing is waterproof and breathable. It's kind of sweet, kind of stylish if you dig the flat brims.
If you're Nate.
I know. For me, I'm I kind of dig this. As well as some socks. All you need to do is click the Gleam link below to enter. If you are watching this later on, you are in luck because we're not doing the drawing until Thursday.
Because we don't have a drawing from last week, do we?
We don't have a drawing from last week.
Okay, so we're not going to do any drawing today.
No
will be done
drawings
next week. But
today.
you're still entered, so no worries about that.
Oh yeah, should we do the drawing now? What do you think?
No, because I like people to, if you're watching this afterwards, a lot of people want to hear about Boston.
We'll do it that way.
So if you're watching this and it's not live, you can still enter, and that way we'll do the drawing next week.
Yeah. Perfect. David says, awesome hearing the inside story from Mario.
Very
Dan
cool.
says, cool. Really glad you guys like it. Guys, again...
and let us know what you think, because we're playing with the format here. We like to change things up every so often, so we like having Mario on would be great. We've had other couple guests. Last time I think we had the guys from Human.
Yeah, they were really fun.
Very cool. So we're bringing you stuff that is interesting to us, hopefully is interesting to you. And if you have other people that you would like to hear, we can always contact people and bring on special guests. So.
Yeah, we would love to do that.
Yeah.
Here for you guys per usual.
What else is on the ticket today?
A few other little wrap-up things. Again, the Boston Marathon live feed. If you actually want to see Mario run through Heartbreak Hill, this is part of a longer stream, but I actually saved it so that it goes right to the part where he starts to run by. So you'll be able to see a very pixelated version of Mario running through. He's looking good. That's kind of fun. Upcoming event again, we are going to be hanging out with Dathan Ritzenheim. I mean, what has Dathan done? What's his background? I know he's done a lot.
He is a 3-time Olympian. Dathan's been a competitive runner for
everything from
2 decades now.
Everything from the marathon to the 5K, right?
Totally.
He's just an incredible stud of a runner.
Yeah, and he's just always been in the American running scene since he was in high school. I mean, I remember him winning Foot Locker Nationals when he was 16 or 17, something like that. He won it early,
and he beat Ryan Hall. He was early.
Dathan has been a force to contend with, and his training is actually really interesting because he's always been a high mileage.
Yes.
I remember him putting in 12 and 13 mile tempo runs when we were in high school.
Yep.
Which is kind of crazy, and especially back then.
He was working up to 100-mile weeks in high school, I believe, when I listened to an interview.
Yeah.
Humbling. I don't know if Mario interviewed Dathan. It might be on his show.
I'm sure.
But there's also another one, the On Coaching, Magnus and Marcus podcast. So Steve Magnus, we should have him on. That would be really
we'll definitely
fun.
have Steve Magnus on. Steve Magnus was ran at Rice just a year after me, and he also is a coach at Houston and is like one of the best elite coaches just on human performance in general. He's written a book called Peak Performance, but is a really, really interesting take on neuroscience and how it's affected on performance, etc. We have a call.
We have another call.
Take it.
Let's take it.
Hey, Craig here, and Nate here with
Nate,
the.
let's make sure that the sound is on.
Can you hear us? Nope.
Did they jump off?
No, we can't do it.
Looks like they jumped off. Anyway, we thought we had a call. False alarm. We do like to have you guys be able to call in with questions and everything, but we are wrapping up here. Looks like Mario is in the chat, guys. If you have any other follow-up questions, I'm sure he'll be happy to answer anything. Adam says, Mario, great race. Did you seeing the high level of elite carnage affect you mentally? Looks like we're getting another call in here. They're giving it a shot. Oh, let's try it.
Why is it ringing? Hello? No, we're gonna leave that alone.
We're gonna leave that one alone. We don't know if we were calling or getting called by an insurance company.
Yeah, it's like an insurance company's phone number.
I know, incredible.
Yeah.
Other guest ideas. Edward says we'd love to have Kelly Starrett on the phone. I think it'd be a great idea. We'd love to have him on.
Yeah.
Any other requests on guests, guys, is super great. Man, thanks for helping carry this one a little bit, guys. So guys, I'm a little on the lower energy side. My apologies.
Nate went to Boston on
the well.
Wednesday.
Yeah, Wednesday.
Wednesday, was there Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday,
and Monday
at the expo and the events, etc. And then Monday,
the whole race.
Covered the whole race, and then flew back here Monday night.
Yeah.
And
then Wednesday night we did an event with SF Marathon, a little panel with Jorge Maravilla, who's also running the SF Marathon. So it's been busy.
Yeah,
it's been super busy.
Yeah.
But really good. We're super stoked. Guys, we have so many fun things going on this spring. The San Francisco Marathon is coming up in July. We are the official coaches for them. Yep. So it is fun to work with them more.
Have you started training for your half marathon? Coaches.
I've been training a good steady drip. I'm not in any official plan yet.
Yes.
I wanted to get through Boston.
I recommend one in particular if you're gonna.
Oh, I'm totally gonna be following our half marathon program going into
2 months
the
out.
thing. We have a beginner and an advanced option. I'm gonna look in both those things and sort of see where I'm at. But I've been really enjoying running. I've been enjoying more running on the roads. Kind of what Mario said. We trained the 50K on the trails last fall, and it was just so much climbing.
Which leg do you think you're gonna do?
I'm gonna race the second half.
Okay.
So I want to get to the finish line, and the first half, it's beautiful for those of you guys who haven't done it before, but it's along the Embarcadero, the Golden Gate Bridge. Like, those are things I do all the time.
Oh, okay.
So I'm excited to do the second because those are areas of the city that I just don't run as much.
That's actually the area that I do run, but yeah.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, so that's kind of interesting to me. So that's in July, which will be super fun.
Yep.
Yeah, I think, 1 or 2 other little races to find, and I don't know if I'm going to do North Face again or not.
I know that I will not do North Face this year.
There could be like the half marathon.
I could do the half. I don't want to do the 50K again. That was a lot of training.
And we're also thinking about other races we need to go through. Super fun to be at Boston. Definitely learn some lessons on how we can better connect with you guys and plan some cool events, especially as we get more friends and companies that like working with us. Should we go to Chicago?
You go to Chicago.
I think Chicago might be kind of cool.
Are we making a live show decision here?
I'm talking out loud, we were in New York last year. New York was super good. Maybe Chicago's in there. We don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens.
Guys, it is 1 o'clock, which means that we're ending this week. Guys, luckily, we're both in town next week. We'll be back next week. More fun, and Nate will be a whole new man.
Bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, I swear, I promise. Thank you guys again for listening. We love it.
Appreciate it. And guys, again, don't forget to sign up for the Gleam link, and then we'll do that drawing next week. Cool? All right. See you guys next time. Oh, don't wait for the outro.
Outro.
Hold on, I got it.
Do the outro thing. There we go.